Hello, 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 and welcome to Courageously Kind. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Liz. We're twin sisters and best friends.
Together, we share stories of especially kind humans doing especially kind things, in hopes that these conversations motivate and inspire you to be kinder to yourself and others. When we're not speaking with an incredible guest, we'll speak directly from our hearts about what it means to us to be courageously kind. This past week was Space Equality Week, and it was honestly so incredible.
And very educational.
I learned so much.
This year's theme was education, and they did a fantastic job of providing so many resources to educate ourselves and others.
They really did. And I feel like this year, in comparison to last year, was I feel like so many more people were involved this year. And I don't know if that's just because we kind of got more involved this year, and so I'm realizing just how many people are behind this movement, but it just felt like we've made a lot of great traction in the last year, and I'm just so excited to see what is to come. So on sort of the topic of activism and advocacy, we're going to talk about something today that I think every activist should know, but also, even if you just are trying to become a better person, I think this is a really, really important concept to be aware of.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about intention versus impact. And this is I think it's a very important lesson that anyone who wants to practice kindness has to learn.
Absolutely.
It's a vulnerable lesson. It's not always the fun, happy lesson.
It's not always easy. Like we were talking about earlier, activism isn't always easy. Sometimes it requires us to be vulnerable and to learn some hard stuff.
Yeah, but I think the hardest lessons, these kind of bumps in the road are necessary.
Absolutely.
And we need them to grow.
Yeah.
And to learn and become kinder people.
Absolutely. So this topic is, I don't want to say it's complicated, but there's a lot to talk about when we talk about intent versus impact. So first, why don't we talk a little bit about what intent is?
Yeah.
So our intentions are our thoughts, our feelings, what we mean by what we say. And I feel like nowadays, especially with social media and the internet, it can be hard to tell what someone's intentions really are.
Absolutely. Because on social media, it's so easy to put something out there that, you wonder, is somebody putting that out there because it's a click of a button and then they can turn their phone off and do whatever they please? Or is this something they really care about, something they really want to say? And I think we have to make a distinction between the two.
Absolutely. So, intention versus impact. The impact is what comes after we say something or do something. So it's the result of our words or our actions. And sometimes I feel like this is almost inevitable. The impact of our thoughts, our words, our actions could be different from what we intended them to be, right? So, we get this all the time. We love answering questions, but sometimes questions are not phrased maybe appropriately, or it's just hard to determine someone's intentions. And most of the time when we respond to those sorts of comments, we always say that we love answering questions, but maybe in the future phrase it like this, or avoid using words like this, because they could be considered offensive or harmful or hurtful to certain groups of people. And almost 100% of the time, the response to that was, well, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah. We always say there's no such thing as a wrong question as long as it comes from a place of kindness. So that intention is filled with kindness. But due to, I don't want to say ignorance, but lack of education, lack of exposure, that kind intention does not always result in a kind impact. And like you were saying, sometimes when we are met with the impact not matching the intention, a defense wall goes up?
For a couple of different reasons. I think we're afraid of being perceived as hateful or hurtful people. You know, like it's a defense mechanism 100%. We are scared of other people seeing that we made a mistake, that we said something that was wrong. And I feel like that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
That defense, that response is normal. But sometimes that response can lead to a confrontation or a conflict that could have been avoided had you not have maybe responded in the way that you did.
Yeah, and you think about it too, defense is a consequence, I can't find the right word here, result of maybe feeling hurt themselves. They feel like they have, something happened for them to try and guard themselves.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can be hurtful to hear that the impact did not match the intention, because it's like, well, that's not what I meant, or like
right.
I wanted this to come from a place of kindness.
Exactly.
And it wasn't met that way. And now I feel bad about myself.
So I'm going to put up this sort of defense mechanism. Right, so I'm going to try and
protect myself from that bad feeling.
Yes. So there's a couple things to keep in mind when these situations happen. And we actually have a little checklist for you. So, okay, say you're in a situation where you say something or you do something and another person expresses that they were hurt or that your words or actions were hurtful or harmful in some way. I think the important thing to remember is that it's not an attack on you or your character. It's more of a correction. It's more of a, hey, I want to tell you maybe why this isn't correct or isn't right, so that you don't make this mistake again. Absolutely. It's like a teaching moment. It's a learning moment, for sure. Inevitably, this is going to happen, right? We're not perfect people. We make mistakes, especially on our journeys to being better people, being activists, whatever it may be. When this happens, a few things to keep in mind. The first, remember to apologize. Even if you had good intentions, even if you expressed to the other people or the other person or whatever that your intentions were good, an apology still goes a long way. Yes, and make sure that defense wall does not block that apology from getting to who it needs to. Exactly, because it can be easy to say, well, I don't have to apologize for anything. I didn't mean anything. Right, my intentions were good. I didn't do anything. Right, I didn't, sometimes we get the defense of, well, my intentions were good, so you should receive that impact as good. Yeah. And it's important to remember that once our words or our actions are done, once we've said our words, once we've done our actions, they sort of no longer belong to us in a way. And how they are received, no matter what our intentions, is not really up to us. And that goes back to vulnerability and not being in control. Yeah. And having to kind of let go of control and being open to saying, okay, this is going to affect you however it affects you, and I have to deal with, I don't want to say consequences, but the result. When we talk about apologies too, it's important to remember that we cannot dictate what other people are feeling. And this goes into another aspect of this sort of checklist we made for you, of respecting other people's feelings and emotions and perspectives. I think a common thing we see is sometimes instead of apologizing, we sort of deflect from the fact that someone else was hurt by saying things like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that you're upset. And we don't take responsibility for our words or our actions, maybe because the intentions were good,
Right.
so we don't think we have to take responsibility. But if they hurt someone, the kind thing to do is to take responsibility.
Absolutely.
And to not deflect from that, and to avoid using phrases like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm sorry that you feel sad, but...
Yeah. I think the common theme of this episode is to let go of that defense. And that defense won't make you a kinder person.
Yeah. Accepting that you made a mistake.
Yeah, that acceptance, that vulnerability, and that openness to learning how to be better.
It really is like an act of self-kindness to accept that you made a mistake. You're not going to beat yourself up about it. Don't degrade yourself for it, but accept that you are a human being that is imperfect.
Yeah.
And inevitably you are going to make mistakes. And as long as you learn from them and apologize and try and communicate with others how you can do better,
Yeah.
you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, and what you just said, we talked before we started recording the difference between, like, moving on and moving forward.
Yeah.
I think people say, oh, move on, and, like, forget about it.
Right.
But move forward and take that lesson you learned with you.
Absolutely.
We could probably do a whole other episode on that.
Yeah. I mean, just carrying that knowledge and carrying that experience with you so that in the future, maybe you don't make that mistake, or maybe you don't end up hurting someone or others.
Now, when you're carrying that knowledge, don't bring the shame and the guilt with you.
Yes.
That can happen sometimes.
Yes.
But try and filter out, the shame and the guilt and the self-deprecation and leave that in the
Show
past.
yourself that kindness.
Right.
That acceptance of, I am a human and I've made mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And take that lesson with you.
Yeah. So the things to remember when you maybe say something or do something, and even though you had good intentions, it ends up hurting people. Some things to remember. Apologize sincerely. Mean it. Don't try and deflect.
Or
don't
defend.
try and defend. Take responsibility. Understand if it was a miscommunication, or if you didn't have the tools or the language to say what you meant. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Not having the language, the vernacular, I don't know if I used that word right, but not having the right terminology maybe to effectively communicate what you meant. So understand where you went wrong, and then respect the feelings and perspectives and emotions and opinions of others. Even if you disagree with them, even if they perceive something that's not what you intended, respect them, because they have feelings and they have reasons for their feelings and their perspectives as well.
Yeah.
And then learn from your mistake, learn from what you did, quote unquote, wrong, even though you had good intentions, and move forward with that.
Yeah.
You don't have to hang on to it. You don't have to hold that bitterness and defense.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. Accept that you're a human and that you make mistakes. Learn and move forward.
We'd like to give a huge thank you to Anawalt's Landscape Contracting for their support of Courageously Kind.
Anawalt's is a family-owned landscape contracting company in Berks County that has served Pennsylvania for over 35 years.
If you're ready to get your landscaping project started, visit anawaltlandscape.com or call 610-916-7070.
Anawalt's Landscape Contracting, beautifying Pennsylvania 1 yard at a time.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, feel free to share it with your friends, your family, or anyone you think might like it too.
And if you want to support the show, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help. Or check out our merch store at courageouslykind.org. Take good care, and we'll see you back here real soon.